All right, so let's go ahead and get started. It is 4 o'clock. Welcome, guys. We have lots of people here today. We have a lot of new faces as well. Today, we're going to be doing incorporating the 4 C's into lesson planning. This is the last of 6 in our blended learning series. And with you, if you're going to be with us later this month on June 28th, it will be the last of our 6 our student-centered series. So this one will be talking about incorporating the 4 C's into lessons. My name is Kim Loomis. I want to thank you all for being with us today. I always love to say that, work for Clark County School District in Southern Nevada, but I did retire in 2019 and they said, you know, when you retire, you need to do something that you enjoy. And I got to tell you, I love this. I absolutely love this. And you'll see that in my passion tonight. So when I retired in 2019, I just started consulting and I consult under i3 Digital PD. That's the little logo you see there at the bottom. But I mean, I have years of experiences. We started an online school in 1999 down here in Clark with who is now our superintendent, Joan Ebert. So I've been around in the digital world for quite some time. And the nice thing is we have a superintendent up in the State Department of Education that believes in this just as much as I do. So this is exciting times for us. So today's agenda, we are going to talk about balancing blended learning and really with rigor. When I think about the 4 C's, I think about how can I take the 4 C's and not just do the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creative thinking, but really how can I take that to a deeper level? So tonight we're going to be talking about those depth of knowledge, deeper levels, and how we can get there. And then we'll get into the 4 C's of the 21st century and then really talk about some of the tools and strategies that we'll be using to move that along. And of course, as you guys have been with us a couple times, you know that we have an extended workshop. This is just a teaser of sorts, and there's lots and lots more information inside the extended Canvas workshop, and we'll talk more about that at the end of the session. So go ahead over into chat. A moment ago, you were introducing yourself, but this time, let's go into chat. When you think of the word soft skills, what soft skills do students need to learn? So over in chat, what are some of the soft skills? We know that they need to learn math, science, social studies, English, reading, writing, arithmetic, but what are some of those soft skills? So thank you, Asia, social, all of them. Well, what are all of them, Krista? Because, some people say patience, I love it, collaboration, how to have conversations. These are good ones that are coming up in chat. I love it. Yeah, conversations and collaborations right there. You got the 4 C's, taking risks, communications. Thank you, Jayla. Yeah, these are some soft skills that when we think about the 4 C's, what we're really doing is we're trying to take soft skills and embed them, like problem solving, anger management. These are good ones, guys. Professional conversations, confidence. I love it. You got some good ones coming over here in chat. But how do we embed that and not move away from math, science, social studies, and English, but really embed etiquettes, I love it, into the learning? And that's kind of what we're going to talk a lot about tonight is how do we take the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, creative thinking, and creativity, how do we take that and put it into our theater class? Right? How do we put that into PE? How do we put that into mathematics? And at the same time, we're building these soft skills. Because I don't know about you, I know that when I was teaching, they kept saying, oh, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer. These kids don't want to be doctors and lawyers. They want to be something we've never heard about, right? These new technologies have brought on new jobs. And so oftentimes it's not just the math, science, social studies, and English that are going to get those kids those jobs. But if they don't have the soft skills, they're not hireable. So it becomes really important for us to try to get these soft skills in. So thank you to all of those of you that supported the chat, as we would say. So let's talk about the CIA, or curriculum instruction and assessment of blended learning. Oftentimes you'll hear me talk about the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 balance, and that's really where it comes in. I like to define blended personalized learning with these 3 things. Now, I will tell you, I was a math teacher for 10 years before becoming an administrator in a school and a curriculum coordinator, all those things that you saw on the welcome page. So I try to keep things simple. We want to take the wisdom of the teachers. I truly believe that a teacher's heart is the best thing in the classroom. I never, ever want to take the teacher out of the classroom. I think that you guys have relationships with your students that are so important. They're why kids come to school. They're guiding these soft skills. Really, it was funny. I heard somebody say one time that teachers do brain surgery. And when you think about it, you are molding young minds, young brains. And so you have this wisdom, not only of your curriculum and your standards, but also of, human relationships. And that becomes so, so important. But what we want to do is we want to add in the adaptability of technology. And we're going to talk a lot about technology tonight and how it can carry some of that learning for our students. So if we can take that adaptability and add it in with the wisdom of the teachers, what we get is a personalized learning space for each and every student. So it looks a little bit different for every student. So I'm going to pick on Krista because I know she just put active learning, which is a great soft skill, in the chat. And she might be doing the same lesson that Nate's doing, but they might be doing something different in one moment in time. Nate might be working on a Google Doc, and Krista might be watching a video off of YouTube, but they're working on the same lesson. And that's how we get it personalized, so that not everybody's doing the same thing at the exact same time. And that's where we get that personalized learning. So I like to call it blended personalized learning. And again, these three symbols become really important when you think about blended personalized learning. The teacher, with the caring heart, the technology with the adaptability of digital curriculum and tools, and the student. And that's exactly where we get our thirds. So 1/3 of the time, and I'm thinking over a unit, not a daily lesson, I'm thinking about over a unit of study. 1/3 of the time, you want to release the learning to the technology. Let the technology carry the load so that you're not up there 100% of the time trying to teach. 1/3 of the time, you want to release the learning, and this is where those soft skills come in, like active learning, communication, collaboration, anger management, to our students, right? We want to release that learning, that opportunity for peer-to-peer interaction so that they can develop those soft skills, so that they can practice them. So 2/3 of the times, that outside 1/3 to technology, that outside 1/3 to the students, we are releasing the learning, and we get to do teaching by walking around. And then that 1/3 that we get to do, it could be guided instruction, it could be small groups, it could be one-on-one tutoring. That 1/3 of the time, we're carrying it. And mostly because of the fact that we know what our standards are. And oftentimes we can't get our kids to the higher order level of our standards if we only release the technology. It becomes really important for us to set up and guide the instruction to get beyond the low-level technology delivery. So that's where the C's come in. And the C's are really going to come in on that 1/3 of the student, where we're releasing the learning to our students. So you'll oftentimes hear me say CIA of blended, or what I like to call the digital curriculum, the guided instruction, and the authentic assessment of blended learning. And you see over there on the far right is the triple Venn diagram. And we're shooting for the middle, where we have a nice balance of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 over a unit of study. Now, the cool thing about this webinar, guys, is in the past 10 webinars that we've done, that's right, we've had 10 of them. In the past 10 webinars, you were taking the content we learned in the webinar and you were trying to apply it into your classroom. Well, this time in the month of June, we're going to be taking that knowledge and we're going to be designing a unit of study with the 4 C's. You don't have the opportunity to implement it in your classroom and collect artifacts, but don't worry about that. You're still going to be designing a unit of study using the 4 C's. And you'll want to balance these 1/3, 1/3 digital curriculum, 1/3 guided instruction, and 1/3 authentic assessment. So again, look something like this. We have our 1/3 digital curriculum. It's going to be low level depth of knowledge, or what we call DOK 1 and 2. But what's nice about that is we'll get some data that we can use to help drive instruction. We'll get data from the curriculum that tells us what our kids know and don't know, but we'll also get information from that curriculum that it meets or doesn't meet our standards. Maybe it missed out one of the standards. Maybe it didn't go deep enough. Well, I would assume most of them probably don't go deep enough, but if it can set a foundation, then we can stretch them. And that's when it comes to the guided instruction. How do we want to stretch them? If you were with us our last webinar, we did project-based learning. So that's one way of doing it. One webinar we did with small groups. That's another way of doing it. Another way of guiding the instruction is playlists. And everything I'm just mentioned, guys, small groups, project-based learning, playlists, those are webinars that we've done in the past, you can find those recordings on the YouTube channel for the State Department of Education. But what we want to do is then extend that learning and release to our students. We want to design some higher order thinking that's going to take our kids into application, real world problem solving, where they're stretching and extending their learning to DOK level 4, where they get to a higher order of rigor. And that way, when it does come test time and the NAEPs come in and we have to do NWEAs, that they can show us that they've mastered it because they've practiced it on the digital curriculum. We've guided them to higher orders and they've worked with their peers to get to those higher orders. So when you think of the CIA or the triple Venn diagram, our goal is to balance technology, teacher, and the student, that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So guys, this is in the course, but I'll go ahead and I'll drop it down into the chat for you if you guys want to pull it up now. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through the 1/3s real deep. I want to spend a lot of time talking about the rigor, because what we're really trying to do is use the 4 C's to get our students to a higher order of rigor, because the technology is really good to do that low level stuff. But how do we get to that 3rd where it's authentic, peer-to-peer, interactive, and engagement? When you think of Webb's Depth of Knowledge, oftentimes I like to reference it to Bloom's taxonomy. They're not exactly the same. DOK level 1 and 2 are just like the bottom area of Bloom's taxonomy. It's a lot of recalling of facts and basic concepts and explaining ideas. But when you get to DOK level 3 and 4, where we really want to push our students to that strategic thinking and extended thinking, which is much like applying, analyzing, creating, evaluating, we're getting to the top of the pyramid. So when we think about how can I design a unit of study for next year, think about how can I get those students to a higher order of thinking. When we're using the DOK, what we're doing is we're thinking about how to increase that depth of knowledge. So again, like we said, level 1 was just that recall and reproduction, or what we call knowledge acquisition. Level 2 is skills and concepts, again, knowledge application. And level 3 is strategic thinking. And level 4 is that extended thinking. So you'll notice that's knowledge analysis and knowledge augmentation. So let's just look at these deeply for just one moment. So when we think about DOK level 1, this is where we can release the information or to our technology, because DOK level 1, if you recall, it's just knowledge acquisition. It's recall of facts, definitions, terms, recognizing formulas and procedures. It's that low level stuff that we can release to the digital content. Now you'll notice in our triple Venn diagram over on the right, DOK level 1 is in all 3 elements, technology, teacher, and student, because all 3 should be reinforcing that knowledge acquisition. But it is definitely something that we can release to the digital content. So when we release it to the digital content, we get that opportunity for teaching from walking around. And that's my favorite part. Now, DOK level 2, the knowledge application. Now, this is where we get a little bit higher. Think about it on Bloom's taxonomy, where we're starting to apply some of the formulas. We're applying some of the concepts. It might be like organizing, summarizing, predicting, estimating. Those are some of the things that you would find in DOK level 2. Again, single answer. There's only one right answer, which makes it really easy for the technology to grade. And if you have the Canvas learning management system, these are the types of questions you can put in the assessment parts, DOK level 1 and DOK level 2. They're easy for interpretation. There's only one right answer. So it makes it really easy for our technology to carry it. Again, you'll notice that level 1 and 2 is in all 3 elements, because all 3 elements should be guiding and supporting that. But it is definitely something that we can release to our digital content partner. So when we think about our digital content partner and releasing to them, they're oftentimes engaging software, aligned to standards. They create that personalized learning space, and we get those data points. So that low level stuff that we were just talking about, vocabulary, formulas, simple recipes, anything that has a single right answer, we can release to our digital partners. And once our kids have those basic foundations, then it's really easy to take them to the higher order thinking or to the top of Bloom's pyramid. So if we can start with digital content to set the groundwork, and that's with Khan Academy, that could be with iReady, it can be all kinds of different digital partners that you may partner with that can help carry the load so that you're not doing everything. You can step off the stage, you can do some teaching by walking around, by allowing our students to get those DOK level 1 and 2 in their digital content. But it's going to take us, you and I and your students, to really get to the next levels. Now, when we get to DOK level 3, this is where we get to knowledge analysis. This is where students start really applying some of that real world knowledge that they need to have. This calls for strategic thinking. This is a level that gets a little more complex. Students have to use planning and evidence and thinking on more abstract level. So there's no longer one right answer, nor one right way to solve a problem, right? There's all kinds of different approaches. So it could be like designing and experimenting and analyzing characteristics of genre. It's lots of different complex types of thinking that comes with that. So it's that abstract thinking. So you would throw in like explain your answer, justify your answer, give me some evidence, where the kids are really having to communicate and collaborate probably with their peers just to wrap their heads around what they're thinking. And that's where the 4 C's come in. Because if we want to get our kids to this level, they really need the opportunity to be able to just communicate and digest and think through things with somebody. They need a sounding board. And that's where that peer-to-peer interaction becomes really, really important. And then when we move to level 4, which is augmentation, this is really higher order. I mean, you talk about that project-based learning that we just did. That's what we got here. This oftentimes is taking real world connections and revamping new knowledges in new creative ways. Another C, creative. They're using critical thinking skills. And again, this is why peer-to-peer becomes really important down in this area, because we want them to think through those really complex reasoning and planning and thinking. And that's hard to do all by yourself. And that's why even though I only have a picture of a single student there, when you think about that 1/3 student, I want you to think about peer-to-peer interaction. I want you to think about how can I pull the kids together to talk, to digest, to really think through their answers. Because what we want them to feel is that it's okay to think of something and then later rethink it. Oh, it's something different. We want them to fail forward. Or what I like to say, that's just our first attempt at learning. If it's wrong, it's okay. Then let's try a second attempt at learning. And that's where this risk taking becomes really important for our kids to get to those DOK level 3 and 4, that extended and strategic thinking. They need to have that comfortability to be able to do that. So when we're thinking about our units of study for the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, it's because we're thinking of skills, the soft skills, like you all mentioned up in the chat a moment ago, that they're going to need not only to be successful in school, but they're going to need to be successful in life, in their home life, at family, right? On the soccer field or the playing field where they're at. They need to learn how to do teamwork, how to compromise, how to persuade, how to lead. Not just communicate, collaborate, critical thinking, and creativity, but those things become really important. So when we release to our students, 1/3 of the time, we're giving them the opportunity to practice and fine tune the skills that we know that will make them successful in life. Now we can do that practicing and fine tuning in mathematics, English, science, social studies, but the key is for us to think about how in our lesson, is it going to be a playlist? Is it going to be project-based? Is it going to be some type of peer-to-peer engagement? How do we bring in those 4 C's and those opportunities to practice them? So when you're planning your units of study, I really want you to think about, okay, where can I release to the digital partners? Let's say I pick a unit of study of Columbus coming across to America and finding America. Okay, so where can I find some digital content partner that will help me with that, that'll give me some data? And even if I find a video on YouTube and I can throw it inside of a digital tool called Edpuzzle and I get some data back, tells me that the kids got some basic knowledge, DOK level 1 and 2, then I want to start thinking about, okay, I'm going to guide the instruction. How am I going to do that? Every day I should open my class. Every day I should close my class. Always believe that. I always believe you should have a hook at the beginning of every lesson, and I truly believe that you should always have a close. You could use playlists, menus, choice boards, projects, all of some of the things that we've already been doing. That's why this one's so fun, because it's stuff that, you know, we've been thinking about in the long run, but now we're going to put it all together because we want to be able to have scaffolds and interventions, but also stretch and extend that learning to the higher order thinking skills so that we're really fine tuning some of those SEL skills, those self-management skills, those self-regulation skills, as well as communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. We want to take those kids to those peer-to-peer activities where they can bounce ideas around, brainstorm with each other so that we can get them to higher order projects. So when you're thinking about your unit of study and how you're going to do this, how you're going to increase the rigor and increase the active learning into your classroom, I'm going to give you guys some time to talk to your friends about that. And so again, I want you to talk about how you currently, or how you might, because again, we're going to start thinking about planning a unit of study, increase the rigor and the activity of learning in your classroom. Welcome back. Welcome back. Amy, thank you for student choice. I love it. Interactive lessons with games, Kira, I love it. Those are good. Multiple paths to the right answer. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Christina. Decreasing the time the teacher talks. Yes, right? That whole 2/3, right? That becomes really important. That teaching by walking around becomes so important when we think of our thirds. The how and the why. Yes, getting kids, you know, to explain themselves, getting to that deeper rigor, and not just one-on-one, but actually having them explain to each other, because we really want them to use the language of our content area, the academic vocabulary. All right, so let's talk briefly about the 4 C's. And I love this because we're going to get to do a little fun activity when we do breakout rooms again. The 4 C's actually come from the 21st century framework. This was done a long time ago. 2019 is when they changed it to Battle for Kids, but it used to be called P21 framework. All of this, guys, is in the Canvas course. And really what they did is they identified a whole bunch of 18, I think it was like 18 skills that they thought kids needed for the 21st century. But what's really come out of it is these 4 skills of learning and innovation have become like the big skills. Communication, collaboration, creativity, innovation, critical thinking, and problem solving. Those have become the big skills that everybody has focused in on. And as they've come the skills, you want to think through, not that they're a hierarchy like we just talked about DOK. You know, creativity is not a DOK level 4. You could have creativity at a DOK level 1. Same thing with communication. It's not just a DOK level 1. It could be all the way up to a 4. So think about in your classroom, how can you engage your kids? And again, I'm big on peer-to-peer, trying to get those students to communicate and collaborate with each other, critically think together, brainstorm together, create things together. That's why we were talking about projects just on the previous one that we were in. We really want them sharing ideas, reaching a goal, linking the learning across subject areas, and really getting to some innovation and inventing something new. So when you think about the 4 C's, I'm going to give you a couple verbs, and you'll be able to see all these slides inside the Canvas course. So if I go too fast, don't worry, it's because I want to get to the fun activity that we're going to be doing. But when we think about creativity and innovation, really what we want to do is to think outside the box. We want them to look at multiple perspectives. They cannot do that if they're not talking to each other. Yes, they can go read it on the web and they can find different web pages, but I want them to digest it. We want them to do some improvising, innovating, problem solving, questioning, brainstorming. We want them to do all kinds of really cool things when it comes down to creativity. And this is hard to do by yourself. This is why it's important to get that peer-to-peer. Same thing with critical thinking. Yes, I can critical think by myself. I can do some effective reasoning. I can fail forward by myself, but I don't want to shut down. I need new perspectives to be able to come in and help me evaluate, help me compare, help me make sensible decisions. So this comes into defining and describing and evaluating, classifying, comparing, contrasting. There's lots of things that we can do in critical thinking. Now, this is a pathway to a subject area. Doesn't matter if it's science, social studies, English, math. Critical thinking is just a pathway to being able to digest those content areas. Same thing with communication. Clearly, it shouldn't be done alone, though we do a lot of texting, but it's the ability to articulate our thoughts and convey ideas and listen. I remember there was that active listening as a soft skill. If we can't get our kids together and teach them or allow them to practice active listening, then we're doing a disservice to them. So it's really important to think about evaluating messages and following conventions and analyzing situations, writing, taking turns, those simple things that we think are easy, but we really need to help our students grasp the concepts of these types of things. And our last one here, of course, is collaboration. This is truly a peer-to-peer. This is truly a common goal, generating knowledge, collective knowledge in diverse teams. And as you think of SEL skills, now we're really talking about diversity, bringing in an understanding that people not only look, but they also act differently because of their backgrounds, because of what's been going on in their home lives. They may talk differently than the way we talk. So those types of things come in. So this is helping them with teamwork, brainstorming, decision-making, goal setting, managing time. All right, speaking of managing time, let's do our cool activity. I'm so excited to be able to tell you guys this one. This is called a 4-icon challenge. It's going to get you into the mindset of 4 C's. I want you to tell a story with 4 icons. Now, I've told 3 stories over here on the side. These are big stories that you've probably seen before, probably a movie or a great book. If you want to throw one out that you think that those might be, you can throw that out. And you guys are going to use your 4 C's for the next, give you about 5 minutes or so to put together 4 icons to see if you can tell a story. What I love about this activity is you can look at other people's work. So you can go look at other people's slides and see if you can come up with their stories. Welcome back, everybody. Wasn't that fun? Holy smokes, I loved it. Tanya, I love it that you said over there, that was capital WAS. That was fun. Yeah, it was. And the cool thing about this activity is that it used all 4 C's. Y'all had to communicate and collaborate and think creativity and critically because you had to come up with a movie. This is a great activity. Yes, Marlene, your kids would love this to really think through. And the cool thing is, guys, is you have the opportunity. Everybody can look at everybody else's slides. What 4 C's did you go through? Did you do critical thinking? Did you do creativity? Did you do, I mean, how did that work for you? Anybody want to unmic and throw that out there while others are still guessing on the slides?
We talked about what we wanted to do. And then after that, we kind of delegated different people to look up different icons. But once we decided our title, everyone had different ideas of what we should put on for the icons. So that was nice.
So compromising, right? Which is another soft skill that kind of came up when we're talking about the 4 C's. I love it, Tanya. Thank you. Think about how you could do this, even in mathematics or science or social studies, tell a story in 4 icons or talk about a character in 4 icons. There's lots of different ways that you can do. Let's talk about the different tools. I just used, of course, just a regular old Google slide, but there are lots of different tools and strategies that you can use. So this 4 icon stories using a digital tool, Google Slides, and a strategy, the 4 icons, is they really have to think through the 4 C's. So I put in your Canvas course again, think through all the digital tools that are available to you. There are all kinds of different ways you can do this. Bouncy is probably my favorite for little kids. I really have just kind of enjoyed Bouncy a lot, playing with it, but Google works as well. But there's lots of different ways. PictoCharts, I love PictoCharts, or ThingLink. Probably some of my favorites. If you've ever had a kid do a Voki, I love Vokies, where kids get to animate their own little characters. It was just fun stuff that you can do. So there's lots of different tools that you can use to create something using the 4 C's. Now, also what you'll find inside the Canvas course is the student engagements. If you haven't already found 4 or 5, and these are a lot like the Kagan ones that you like to use over and over again, then please do find some that you like, that you can use over and over again. These little video clips will just talk you through the procedures, and they're done so well that you can actually turn these over to the students to have do. Now, I want to get us a little bit deeper, though, into not just these types of things, but think about small groups. Our webinar number 2 or 3 back in November was about how can you get and spark, curiosity in small groups. So when you're thinking about your unit and how you're going to pull out the 4 C's in your unit study, small groups might be one day within your unit that you're doing these types of things. If you're doing project-based learning, just if you're pulling in something that we've learned in the past, again, we're looking at reasoning and problem solving and peer-to-peer interaction. Project-based. So if you did project-based learning last time and you want to revamp it, or you want to do another one for next year, this is a great time to do it. Start thinking about how you can pull out those higher order thinkings using the 4 C's to get those done. I've been grading some of those, and some of you are like, well, if I do it differently, let's redesign it. This is a great time to redesign that. Also, I put in there, and I love the John Spencer stuff. If you haven't looked at launch cycle that he talks about, it's inquiry, design thinking type thing, very similar to project-based learning that we did last time, but he's got a really good, cycle there that takes kids through the 4 C's in that active peer-to-peer. When we were talking about protocols and you saw the videos, if you haven't looked at Edu protocols, and I put a bunch of them inside of our Canvas course to look at, I love these. They come from John and Marlena. Some of them have been around for years. And that's why I put some of the videos in there, like the PBJ, Iron Chef. Those are some that have been around for years. So there were some videos in there for you to see those things. The key though, guys, when you're designing your units, think 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But think about what's the desired result. What do you want in the end? What are the big ideas and skills you want out of that? Then figure out what type of activities and culminating tasks you want to have. Then start thinking about the learning task. Don't start with the learning task. This is backwards design. Start with big ideas, culminating assessment. Is it going to be a project base? Is it going to be a test? Is it going to be maybe a combination of the two? Then you can start thinking through what those tasks are. So when you're thinking about your next steps, if you're looking for those 5 additional professional development hours, I want you to explore some of the activities, engagements that you see there inside of Canvas. And then I want you to reflect on this new pedagogy and really think about, how do I get the kids to a higher order, that rigor, that peer-to-peer interaction, and recreate or remix a unit of instruction that you did last year or even in the years in the past by adding in some great 4 C's active engagement elements. The write-up will be a little bit different this time. As you go in there, you'll see more on that higher order number 1, telling me what are some new things that you learned, and less on artifacts, because you don't have any artifacts. But I will want to see your unit lesson plan. All of this is in the extended workshop. So again, in the learn more about it. The grow helps you with the planning and the processes. That's where you're going to see Edu protocols and the launch. And then the demonstrate or the show is, instead of doing it in our classroom, because we don't have classrooms at this time, is you're putting something together that you can roll out next school year. And right now is a great time to do that, because you have the time to really kind of dig through the digital content and dig through some of the activities and think through how you can do those. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I only like about 3 or 4 different activities, and I use them over and over and over again, like this 4 icon activity. I can use it in lots of different ways. I can use it in social studies. I can use it in English. I can use it in science. I can use this in lots of different ways. I like to do a protocol that's called a 1, 2, 4, meaning 1, you independently study something. 2, you pair up with somebody and discuss what you've learned. And then 4, you take 2 pairs to get together. I use that a lot when I'm doing professional development. So I find 3 or 4 of them that I really, really like, and I use them over and over and over again. I don't feel like I have to be app happy and go find a new way to do a protocol. I want to get really good at 1 or 2 or 5 or 6 protocols and have my kids do it, like interactive slides like you saw today.